My mother is a narcissistic, so is my sister. Well, when my mother came to me asking for something, it was pretty significant. But I thought about it and I came to a conclusion. But what I did not realize is my sister, who, by the way, has been ruining my life since day one, had something that she was hiding from me. Let me tell you what it was.
It's true that one narcissistic family member is equal to 100 enemies. In my case, I had 2 narcissistic family members pulling me down, my mother and my sister. I'm 36 female, married for 8 years with 2 kids, and the problem of my life is, thankfully, not my husband but my own family. Some 5-6 weeks back, my mother called me. She said that she was having a problem and needed some help. Well, of course. Why would she call me if not for help? She said she was planning to buy a house but did not have enough money. She opted for a loan, but she did not have anything to mortgage for, and so she wanted me to take a loan in my name and give her the amount, and she said that she would pay back the installment and would never default. Okay, to give a little context, I'm not from an affluent background. My father left us when my sister and I were in school. He was a troubled man, busy with his alcohol. My mother did odd jobs to raise us, and money was always a problem growing up. My sister dropped out of school at 15 and took up a lawn mowing job. When I completed school, my mom and sister asked me to quit my studies and take up a babysitting job. I wanted to study high school and even aspired to get into college, but I never told them my entire plan, just one thing at a time. I told my mom that I wanted to complete high school and not take up a job, and she was upset. But I offered to do the extra household chores. My plan was to study hard for high school, as well as secure a scholarship in college because we didn't have any other means to afford it. I studied in community school, but there was no community college near our home. It was like 30 miles away or something, and I didn't have enough money to commute. So a scholarship was the only option for me. I worked really hard and scored at the top percentile in my high school and got a full scholarship for a nursing program. Mom and sister were angry that I wanted to study further and not work. According to them, it was a waste of 3 years in which I could have earned money for the home. I tried to explain to them that a nursing job after 3 years would pay me 10 times what I would get as a babysitter. Well, they didn't get it. But anyways, I moved out and pursued my dream. The 3 years in college was the most exhausting years of my life, with countless assignments, lab practicals, exams, everything. Thankfully, my scholarship covered most of the expenses, so one part-time job as a cashier was enough to sustain my life. I was never close to my mom and sister, and college distanced me further from them. My mindset was just so different from them. I was aspirational about working hard and building a good life. They also worked hard, but they wanted to live in the present. They barely saved, though the money that they earned was not huge. I feel they could have saved it if they intended to. Anyways, I was satisfied that I was living my dream of attending college. When they got to know that I was working as a cashier, Mom called me and insisted that I send her some money. I told her I was working for that job so that I could put my life together. If I had options, I would have had done the job because my college was daunting. She didn't understand any of those except for the fact that I was earning money but not giving it to them. I promised that after college, once I started working full-time, I would help them. Mom did not call me after that, and whether I used to call her, she would always complain about money problems, so after a while, I also stopped calling her. My sister never called me after I moved out. After college, I immediately got a job at one of the best hospitals in town. It was an entry-level job, and the pay was less compared to an experienced nurse, yet way more than what I would have earned as a babysitter or a lawnmower. When I called my mom to give her the good news about my job, she was happy, but her question was how much of my salary was I going to give her? I was like, let me settle down first. I've moved out of college dorm. My college senior offered to let me stay at her place for 2 weeks until I started to work. I had a lot to sort out, but she was angry that I was stalling her for giving the money. I had yet to join work to get the salary, but she was interested in getting the money now. I said I would send the money when I got the salary and hung up the phone. Every month on the 1st, I used to get a call from my mother because she, quote, missed me. Surprisingly, it was always on my salary day that she missed me so much and then forgot I existed for the rest of the month. I used to give them 20% of my salary as my duty. Yes, she raised me well beyond her means as a single mom, so it was my responsibility to take care of her when I was doing well in life. But I realized soon that she was just after my money, so I did not reveal my exact salary to her. Else her demands would have soared high. Whenever she asked, I used to tell her 50% less. She used to remark that nurses usually earn way more than I was telling her, and I said, yeah, you're right. I was not a good nurse, so I don't get enough bonus compensation. I haven't been there for long. In the hospital, I met my husband. He was an on-call doctor. Coincidentally, he and I both got the night shift together for multiple instances in a quarter, and that's how we clicked. One thing led to another, and we dated for 2 years and got married in a private ceremony. Mom and sister attended it, but my sister was not happy that I was marrying a doctor. She was jealous. It was surreal for them and for me as well, and who could have thought that I, who was about to drop out from school and became a lawn mower, was now a nurse and marrying a doctor? My mom was naturally very close to my sister because they were allies. According to Mom, my sister made a huge sacrifice by dropping out of school, taking up odd jobs at a tender age, and bringing money to the family. They were still living together while I had moved out at 18. After a year of marriage, my sister married a mine worker, but he was away from home for the whole week, so my sister lived with Mom during the weekdays, and of late she got divorced from her husband and is currently single. I don't know the reason for her divorce, and neither do I care. Even after my marriage, I continued to send money to my mother every month. My husband also encouraged me that I should help her. It was during the birth of my first daughter that I stopped giving them the money. When I heard my due date, my condition worsened, and I had nobody to take care of me because my husband had got to the hospital. I asked my mom to come over to take care of me, but she refused. She shifted to a better neighborhood and was leading a good life with the money I used to send. But when I needed her, she declined. She said my sister was sick and needed care. Mind you, my sister did not have any major health concerns. She was just under the weather. I'm not somebody who counts favors, but that was the time when I really needed my mom to be by my side, and she declined. So I just stopped sending her monthly money. Yes, it wasn't easy. She tried all means to extort the money. From my emotional blackmail to mental torture, I'm telling you, she tried it all. But I had to put my foot down to cut her off, and I did. Needless to say, our relationship soured after that, and lucky for her, she got a nanny's job for a wealthy couple and she made good money. We barely spoke until it was very necessary for either of us. Mostly it was her. Okay, fast forward to the current situation. Mom wants me to take a loan of $100,000 and give it to her to buy a house. Seeing my situation, it should be a complete no to the loan her of the amount. The only reason why I'm thinking of helping her out is because of her retirement security. She's getting old and weak, and she cannot work forever to earn her rent and livelihood. In this case, having one's own house is a security. Also, her plan is to rent out half of the house so that it can cover her household bills. Her plan makes sense to me. I discussed this with my husband, and as usual, he did not interfere and left it to me to decide. Mom assured me that she would pay the installments without default, and she even showed me the down payments that she had saved for the house, just that she doesn't have anything for the mortgage for the home loan. I usually look up to this community for advice. This is a critical one. Anybody ever experienced this situation before? Anything should be taken care of for the loan thing? Let me know. Update number 1. Hey, this is an update for the loan process. I finally made the decision to loan the amount of money to my mom. People asked if it was a home loan or personal, so it was a personal loan. A home loan can only be taken in the name of the house owner, which is my mother in this case. No, I got a personal loan on the basis of my salary, plus as a healthcare worker, I enjoyed certain rebates. She has been looking for a property to buy, and the property that she was eyeing earlier had been sold out because of the delay in the loan process. I was worried that she would waste that money on some other things, so I kept following up with her on the status. 2 months after I've given her the amount, she was finally able to shortlist the house that she was looking for. My husband insisted that I review the paperwork just to avoid any problems in the future, and I'm visiting them next week to see the house and the paperwork. When I told my mom that I wanted to visit the house and see the paperwork, she said the present owner is renovating the home before handing it over to Mom. Once that's done, we could go visit. Well, the bank gave me 6 months' time before the installments would start. Meanwhile, the thing I dreaded happened. So, my divorced sister found love again. According to the rumor in the family, she was cheating on her first husband with this guy. My sister is getting remarried, and it's not a concern, but her wedding is. I saw the invitation and I was shocked. The wedding is happening at one of the most premium locations in the town by the lakeside. The guests are also in the hundreds. So yeah, the drinks, the food, and moreover, the wedding planning is one of the best in town. There was no way she could afford to have such a wedding unless the guy she was marrying was like super rich. I asked my mom about the guy and she told me that he was a taxi driver. My sister currently works as a nanny. It was just unbelievable that any of them or even together could afford such a lavish wedding. So I get suspicious in the same way as you are. I told my husband and he also suspected the same. So I called my mom and inquired about the house. She said it would be done in a few weeks, and after a month I again asked and she said that the present owner is out of the country, hence the documentation is yet to be done. I insisted that I at least see the property, but she kept stalling. After seeing the lavish itinerary of my sister's wedding, I went to my mom and asked her about the house right away. She was caught off guard because she wasn't expecting me or this question at the least. She fumbled to answer, and I asked her if she was using the money to fund my sister's wedding. That was pretty straightforward, and Mom got offended. She clarified that it was not my money and that I had only loaned it on her behalf, which she would pay me back, and she said, and I quote, "Your sister was right. You're arrogant about your money and status, and what do you think your sister can't afford such a wedding for? My poor little girl had been saving for so many years to have this dream wedding, and you're just jinxing it with your jealousy." This is my mom in a very normal situation. She's always been biased towards my sister, and I usually pull back and don't intervene in the matter, but this time, it was about my money. I said that I wanted to see the house that she was going to buy and also talk to the seller. At this point, she gets really defensive, saying that it's none of my business and that I should not get involved. I gave up on arguing with her because my mom and sister are a pro in that. I decided to find out the truth in a different way. After a few days, I took my kids to my mom. I've never stayed in my house ever since I left for college, but this time I stayed over. My children also like this change of staying over at Granny's place. Mom and sister lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. My sister occupied one of the rooms, and my kids and I stayed with my mom in her room. After midnight, when my mother was in a deep sleep, I snuck into her phone. She's a deep sleeper and doesn't wake up during sleep hours, and I wanted to check her bank statement, but she did not have any banking apps. Neither did she sync her email with the bank account, so I downloaded the banking app on my phone and used her details to log in. The OTP went to her number. I took it from the phone. That was the safest way to keep track of her transactions, and when I logged in, I found the account balance was only $80,000. It should have been $100,000 plus. Then I checked the transactions to find out that she's written a check to the wedding venue, wedding planner, and the decorators. With the amount sent to these people, it was clear that it wasn't a full amount, but just an advance. And yes, indeed, my mom was using my money to fund my sister's wedding. I wanted to get into a full-blown confrontation mode right away, but It didn't make sense. I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night, and the next morning, as soon as my kids woke up, I came back to my house. I told my husband about everything and showed him the details on the app that I downloaded. He suggested discussing it with Mom, but I wanted to teach them a lesson. I was done talking to them. I didn't want any verbal exchanges now. I called up the venue owner to check the renting process. Posing as a customer, he informed me that 30% advance and the remaining after the wedding before vacating the venue. Then I called up a wedding planner company and they informed me that it was a 10% advance, 40% on the day of the month's wedding and before they started preparing the venue. And of course, the remaining after the wedding. That was it. I knew what I wanted to do. I'm waiting for the wedding day, which is in a week. I told my husband about the plan, and he was not happy that I was in the mood to ruin my sister's wedding. He insists on confronting them rather than putting a show in front of everybody. I don't know. I guess I'm the evil one between the two of us. I intended to make this update after the wedding, but cannot hold out my excitement of taking revenge on my mom and sister. Stay tuned. Update number 2. Hey guys, yes, my plan was successful. Like I said, my husband's a saint and insisted that I confronted Mother regarding the money instead of pulling my revenge. I refused to do so, but on the morning of the wedding, my husband spilled the beans. We reached my mother's place in the early morning of the wedding, and my husband told my mom that I had something to discuss. Putting me on the spot, sister was not around. Husband then took the kids out and left us alone. I had to confront Mom regarding it. I told her I knew that she was using the loan money to fund my sister's wedding. Mom turned red and asked me, how did I know that? I didn't tell her about the banking app and all. I lied that I went to the bank and got the details. She started sobbing and said that my sister wanted a dreamy wedding, but neither she nor her boyfriend would be able to afford it. So, Mom loaned the money to her, which they would return to Mom in installments. I stood quiet because Mom was trying to sabotage me emotionally. She held my hand and said my sister has never seen happiness in her life. She's always worked hard to earn her bread right from her childhood. Her first marriage was also a disaster. Her husband used to be abusive and an alcoholic. She pleaded with me to bear with it for my sister's sake, and as this was the only happiness in her life. She went on to say that I have everything: a good husband, beautiful children, a flourishing career, and a decent wealth to lead the rest of my life uncomfortably. I asked her, what did she hide the truth from me for? She said she was afraid that I would be angry to know this, and Mom said that it was just the portion of the $100,000 that she was using for her sister's wedding. She said just $20,000 was it. I asked her if she would be able to get the house with the remaining $80,000, and she said yes. I was still not convinced and, started to interrogate her. My sister was eavesdropping on us, and suddenly she stormed into the room and started hurling abuses at me. She said I had not done any favors on them by loaning $100,000 to them. I owed them, apparently, because they both had raised me. She played the victim, and she said that she had to drop out of school to feed me, and now it was my turn to pay them back. I reminded them that I had paid back for many years. The argument got so intense, and we both charged at each other and started calling each other names. In a fit of rage, she said I was jealous of her $100,000 wedding. Apparently, she was boasting around the neighborhood, saying that she was going to have this massive grand wedding, and I looked at my mom and asked if this was true, and she said, yeah, actually it was her dream to have such a wedding, and you would get the money back, trust us. My sister intervened and said, Mom, stop begging in front of her. Tell her that we're not going to pay a penny back. She owes us. We've worked our butts off to raise her. I lost my temper and we fought like cats and dogs. My husband heard us from the outside and jumped in to save me. He's a peaceful man. He didn't fight with them. He just pulled me to the side. I started yelling at him that it was his idea of the confrontation and that I had to tolerate their abuses because of him. We went back home, and After all of this, I was not going to attend her supposed $100,000 wedding. On the way back, I immediately opened the banking app that I installed and transferred all the money into my bank account. Prior to this, I had added my email and ID to my mom's bank, so it was smooth for me to make the transfer. Mom and sister are not very tech-savvy to understand all these and stuff, and they still don't use online banking and visit the bank every task they need money. But when she got the money withdrawal message, they got so mad. When I was leaving Mother's house, swearing not to attend my sister's wedding, they didn't stop me. Instead, they said that I was not even welcome at the wedding anyways. Now, when they get the message, they blasted my phone with calls and messages. They had to pay the wedding planner before they started preparing the venue, but they had no money. I emptied it all. The money was not small, which they would, borrow from somebody else. When their pleadings didn't help, they turned abusive. Sister threatened to lodge the police complaint that I illegally transferred the money from Mom's account, and I texted back that I would also complain that the money was illegally transferred from my bank account to hers. $100,000 was transferred from mine to hers, but I transferred only $80K from hers. My case would be stronger, obviously, because I have the evidence that $100,000 was loaned to me from the bank. How would they prove the source of their $80K? They hurled abuses at me and hung up. Well, the next thing that happened was a series of disasters for them. They went to the venue, but the wedding planner refused to decorate or arrange catering without payment. They both gathered some close friends who helped them put up some flowers and wine, and soon the guests started coming, and they were shocked at the arrangements. The venue was one of the most premium locations in town, yet it looked deserted without any decorations, and yes, there was no food. Yet, well, it mentioned, though, the itinerary, it did have some bagels and a little bit of wine. The guests mocked them at such extravagances was mentioned in the invitation card, but in reality, the guests were not even fed properly. They became the laughing stock of the day, and I got to know all this from relatives and neighbors. People are always ready to pass on gossip. The groom's family was very embarrassed in front of their guest, and they berated Mom and sister for humiliation. They mocked my sisters, saying that they didn't want $100,000, but a simple one where the guests could get to eat and drink. The wedding was almost canceled, but the pastor already arrived. He was Mom's friend, and the pastor pacified the situation, and the vows were exchanged. It wasn't over yet. The wedding venue authorities needed the remaining payments before the venue could be vacated. Mom and sister had no money to give. They pleaded with the authorities to give them some time to pay the money. But that's not how they work. They blocked the exit of the bride and groom and their families until they paid the remaining money. The groom's family somehow escaped because they were not the ones who made the booking. Mom's sister and the groom were held up. Mom and sister insisted that the groom pay, but he was a cab driver. It's quite impossible for him to hand over $30,000. At least, the authorities were finally called. And the police got there, and they released on agreements that sister would pay 30% with the 15% interest over the next 6 months. I don't know how they're going to pay such a huge amount of money, but this has definitely strained her marriage even before it got started. I felt bad and somewhat guilty for putting them through this. My husband has already guilt-tripped me enough for harassing my family in this way, but guys, don't judge me without being in my shoes. I've tolerated their exploitation and abusive for many years. Ever since I moved out of my house at 18, I fed myself and never took a penny from them. After I got the job, for the next 10 years, I gave them a monthly allowance. I did not deserve to be treated in that way. People can call me whatever they want, but I'm not going to be a doormat any longer.
Wow, this story was absolutely crazy. The comments, they were even wilder on this post. I would say it was actually pretty split, 50-50. 50% of the comments were basically telling OP you went way too far. You didn't have to do what you did to the extent that you did. Yeah, we get you wanted retribution, revenge, but you should have just let karma handle it after you got your money settled. However, I would say there was about 50% of the other commenters who were saying, no, don't listen to your husband, don't listen to any of those comments. You did not go too far, you deserve to do what you did, and they were standing with OP. So I want to know your thoughts, your opinions on this one, guys. This one did have a lot of drama involved, but hey, we got done with it at the end of the day with a conclusion. No more updates, this story seems pretty much wrapped up. Drop your thoughts down below in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito, thank you for joining me on today's video. If you want to subscribe, just know you're going to be treated with a daily story. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.